So a quick video. It's about chronic fatigue, and I want to paint a picture of why you're fatigued. And why is it constant? Well, just think of it this way, right? Life through you curveballs. You've been through some stressful events in your life, toxic relationship, work environment sucks, surgeries, medications, drugs, alcohol, cigarettes, many, you name it, many things, right? So you have all these loads that you've been carrying, right? And your body isn't working efficiently. It's kind of buffering, working slowly, but it's keeping you alive. It's doing its job. You got alarms ringing. Your baseline's at 1,000. So that right there alone will give you the chronic fatigue. But that's not all. Just imagine this. Okay, let's paint a picture. You're an office worker. You work in an office. You work the 9 to 5. The 9 to 5 shift. You ever notice how people that they work in an office and they come home, they're fucking tired because they're at the desk. They're not moving much. They're at their desk and they're constantly typing. Their eyes are focused on this TV screen, doing a lot of emails, right? And they work from 9 to 5 o'clock. They're out of there. They're finally done. Right? They go home and they're fucking tired. They're like, fuck that. I don't want to do anything. Fuck that. That's tiring. Working in an office. People might think, well, you don't do much physically, but you get tired. It's all mental work. The mental brain, when it gets overworked, it affects the body. Well, that makes sense, doesn't it? So, they're done at 5. They go home. They're tired. They sleep. They eat some food before they go to bed, and they do it all over again the next day. Right? So they get tired working in an office. So imagine, it's like you working at an office, but all day, all you're doing is you're resisting your thoughts. Constantly resistance, and resistance. More resistance. Right? That's exhausting because you're constantly in a survival state. Fighting. Constantly fighting the alarms. It's already bad enough that you got the exhaustion from the alarms coming at you constantly. The brain's perceiving danger. You're in a survival state constantly. You're in fight or flight constantly. You got these alarms ringing constantly. Plus, you're fighting all this stuff. You're going against the tide, going like this constantly, right? But you're not done at 5 p.m. You don't get to go home. No, what happens is you keep doing this, right? You're doing this in your sleep. You do this as soon as you wake up. You're doing this over and over and over and over again, right? And then you start having avoidance behaviors because you don't want to waste your energy on another crash because you're afraid that if I go walk from here to there or outside to the store, I'm going to crash. So I got to conserve my energy. And I got to do avoidance behaviors, which puts out more alarms because you're doing avoidance behaviors. The brain perceives danger, right? So there's that, the avoidance behaviors. And the what if thoughts, the exhausting, looping, scary, fucking doubtful what if thoughts about, well, I can't do this, I can't do that. If I do this, I will crash, right? And then when you crash, the after effects of the what if thoughts, you're out, you're crashed. So what do? You're always trying to conserve that energy, that little energy that you have left, you're conserving. So no wonder why you have chronic fatigue. Because you're running a program that is wasting your energy, right? It's just like any car. When they have a certain fuse to make sure, or a program, right? You can change the program of your vehicle to make it have more horsepower or to run more efficiently, right? We're the same way. If you're running a bad program, you're going to be wasting energy. Wasting energy on what? Resistance, right? Trying to conserve, being a survival state all the time, right? Always turning on more alarms when they should be turning them off. Baseline through the roof. That's wasting energy. You want to be at a point where you're running an efficient program. You're turning off alarms, bringing your baseline down, right? You're not doing any avoidance behaviors because we're going to do exposure to, to the things that you're afraid that you're going to crash, right? So you're going to purposely crash over and over and over again, right? Until you're not scared of it anymore. The fear The fear drives that. It's like that spark. The fear drives that fire that's burning on both ends, which makes you exhausted. So when we get rid of the fear, how do we get rid of the fear? Expose yourself to the fear, which is avoidance behaviors, worrying that I'm going to crash. If I do this, I'll crash. See the fear? See the fear there? See the OCD looping thoughts about that? So you're always trying to conserve. You're walking on eggshells because you're afraid that you're going to crash. See how that works? So if we expose ourselves to the fear to the point where you just don't give a shit anymore, there's no more fear. Your brain goes, meh. It's normalized. So energy isn't wasted on the fear toward the crash. So you start to conserve energy. All of a sudden you have this extra energy that you didn't have before, that you're not wasting on resistance, conserving, being in a survival state, avoidance behaviors, alarms, the baseline being up high. There's like 10 reasons and things that we do that keeps our body, well, our brain, burning energy and wasting it. So when you finally switch on to a different program, your baseline starts to calm down. You turn off alarms. You don't do avoidance behaviors because you've normalized the fear of the crashes because you've done it a million times, right? You're like, meh, if I crash, I crash, meh. Right? And then eventually you don't crash anymore. You have all this energy. And you become the Energizer Buddy, where you have all this amount of energy that you just can't burn. Too much of it. You could just have barrels full of energy and you're like, yeah, it's not even about energy anymore at that point. It just is. You can do whatever you want. You just can. You just, whatever it is, whatever you want to do, you just do. It's not even a question about if you have energy or not. And then people have the belief system. It's like, me too. I thought the same thing. It's like, well, I don't really believe that thinking gives you chronic fatigue. It must be a nutrient thing. Must be the gut biome. It's got to be, that you're low on iron or something. Or, you should bomb your nervous system and get some antibiotics in you. Or it's probably because I'm eating red meat. It's got to be something there. Probably I'm having a heart problem. With all the meat that I ate all my life, it's probably why I'm fatigued. That's probably why. It's hard to believe that resisting our thoughts constantly can get you fucking fatigued. It's hard to believe that a baseline at 1,000, because it isn't anything that you can grab onto, right? So it's new. The whole concept is new. It's like, I get it, but is that the real issue though? I'm not convinced, right? Alarms are constantly ringing, but I don't really see the alarms. But you do see, you hear them. They're looping. Those are alarms. Those, they're symptoms. Those are all alarms. Your body, you're carrying loads from 15 years ago when you had that traumatic event, or that somebody died, or you were on medication or antibiotics for 2 months, right? The body keeps a score. This shit starts to add up. This shit starts to fill up, and it hasn't been drained yet, right? You haven't given your body a chance to let go of stuff and to release the loads. Yeah, I'm not convinced of that either. Okay, well, what else is there? When you have a symptom, you got fear, right? Yeah, I feel fear. Well, that's exhausting. Constantly looping on a thought, that's exhausting. That's resistance also. Do you believe that? Yeah, but I'm not convinced that it makes you chronically fatigued. Well, all those things together, you betcha. Even just having your baseline up and having alarms ringing, that alone, those two things alone will do it. When you add those other 10 things, well, there's a reason right there. So, what do? Well, you bring the alarms, turn the alarms off, bring your baseline down, you recalibrate, right? And then all of a sudden you have this extra energy that you're not wasting on resistance. And, well, how do you turn that fear off? Well, you allow the fear to be there. And actually, you have crashes on purpose. And I've heard some Karens on some of these other Facebook groups say, that's irresponsible. How dare you say something like that? Telling people to expose yourself to doing something so that you do get tired and you do have a crash. What's that going to do? Well, obviously the avoidance behaviors is working for you, isn't it? You're obviously having avoidance behaviors. Why? Because you're trying to conserve energy. Why? Because you're scared of the flare. The fear of the flare is keeping you stuck in that loop. So what do you got to do? You got to break that cycle. And how do you do it? Go towards the fear. With most things, the answer is going towards the fear. So what's the fear in this case? That you're going to crash. You want to turn that fear off? Okay. Then go towards it. Purposely crash. Exert yourself. Purposely crash. Feel like shit. Over and 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 over again. Until you become indifferent to it. And while you're doing it over and over and over and over and over again, don't white knuckle through it. Don't survive through it. While you're doing it, live your life still. That's really irresponsible. And this will turn off the fear towards crashing. When you are indifferent and you're still crashing, you're like, yeah, oh yeah, you're in bed. Well, yeah, I just, I did too much yesterday, but that's okay. I don't really care about that. I still live my life. It's kind of funny. And it's actually perfect timing because it's time to go to sleep anyway. It's fucking 10 o'clock, so it kind of works out perfect, right? And eventually you start to make a shift where the brain sees, oh, he's not afraid to crash anymore. So that isn't an alarm anymore because I'm not perceiving danger there anymore because there's no danger. He's fine. So, I was wrong. I'll turn that alarm off. So, your limbic system starts turning off alarms. Sweet. And guess what? The chronic symptoms of fatigue lift. They dissolve. And all of a sudden you have this extra energy. And you're doing things and routines. I noticed with 99% of these symptoms, routine is very important. Because you're more focused on the routine, you're engaging. This is where engaging is huge with most symptoms, also with chronic fatigue. When you're excited to go do something, and that takes over, that excitement of that engagement that you're doing takes over. What it could be your hobbies or interests, and you can't wait till tomorrow to do ABC. You get up and you go do it, and you don't really care if you're going to have a crash. That's when you move forward. You start to have a routine, and you don't notice when you crash anymore because you don't care anymore because you have other interests that are more important because the fear is gone. So then you start to get out of your circle. You start to go further and further and further. And before you know it, you're back to normal. And you didn't even notice that you're back to normal because you had a routine and you were more interested in the things you're engaging in than if you could only last for 2 kilometers. The focus was on the 2 kilometers. Right? That's where the resistance is. That's where the alarms go on. That's where the energy is wasted. Does that make sense? I think it makes sense. So it's not it's not complicated. It makes sense. So I guess you got to be irresponsible and start going towards your fears until you could become indifferent to them.